I went to the bus stop to go board a bus home. And I remember standing at the bus stop, and it was probably like 9 p.m. at night or something. With elections, oftentimes things run late, and we often have to prep for the next day and all of that. Um, I was standing at the bus stop, and I just see this car, like there's cars on the road because it's literally on the main road, and I just see this car with this white boy, and half of his body is hanging out of the window, and I see his head stretched out, and I'm like, why is this guy stretched out of this car? And all I remember was I just felt this massive hit on my chest. And at first I thought I had been shot, because it was like a massive, I've never been shot before, but it almost felt like that. There was a massive hit on my chest, and my chest was starting to hurt, and I couldn't breathe for a bit. And after a few moments, I looked down, and he had thrown an egg at me.
Hey there, and welcome again to another episode of Africans Abroad, the podcast. This is your host, Christopher Eves Ricks. I'm glad to be back with you, and today I have been blessed with the presence of a beautiful, intelligent, ambitious, hardworking queen who happens to be from Nigeria, residing in Manitoba, Canada. This young lady is a community organizer. She is an activist. She's the co-founder of NOR Professionals, which is an organization based in Winnipeg that focuses on connecting and cultivating opportunities for young Black professionals. I hope I got it right. And you know what? Actually, I'm excited for this because we actually have become pretty good friends. And I can tell you that she is a really, really dope individual. And you can be excited to listen to her story. So, ladies and gentlemen, the next African Abroad on the Africans Abroad podcast is my own friend, Miss Oyindamola Alaka.
Hi, Christopher.
Hey, Oyinda.
Thanks so much for that.
Yeah, I like that name. I like your name. And I like you as a person, so this is exciting to me. I envy real African names. I feel like I should adopt. I should get an extra name. I don't know.
Hey, it's not too late.
It's not too late.
You can always get a Nigerian name, so
we got a couple in Liberia. Yeah, we actually do. I've always been fond of there's a tribe in Liberia called Bassa, and there's this name that always pops up called Bisiji.
What does that mean?
Something they always got religious related meaning. There's something about God. Something I've forgotten what it means. But yeah, that name it always pops up. Bisiji. Probably do something about that sometime. Anyways, Oyinda, it's wonderful having you here. Finally, I was able to get you on the podcast, and I feel blessed. I feel blessed today because you are a busy woman. So I appreciate your presence.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. I'm grateful that you think very highly of me. I think very highly of you too, and the sentiments are very mutual. And I'm definitely very grateful to have you as a friend and to be on your podcast finally after like months and months of trying to.
I've been trying to get her for ages, but I mean the I don't. I'm just glad to have you here. Really.
Yes.
All right. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's been a busy season for me at work,
Hmm.
and also in my personal life. But I'm doing well. I'm doing great.
That's
Yes,
good.
it's been a couple of stressful mornings today, but everything's going well so far.
Good. Good. I'm glad. Well, let's just jump right into it. Orinda, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience and let them know who you are and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like you've given me an awesome introduction already. But yes, my name is Oyenda Mola Alaka. I usually go by Oyenda, and I currently reside in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I am the co-founder of Noir Professionals, which is a startup, and our goal is to connect, create, and cultivate opportunities for Black professionals in Canada. I wear many hats. For my 9 to 5, I work in book publishing as a book publicist.
Mm.
I also work on a lot of creative projects on the side, ranging from festivals to political campaigns or business strategies and many more. I also do a lot of community organizing, and I sit on a couple different community organizations in my city here in Winnipeg. And I am an avid and proud Nigerian. I wear my Nigerian pride
Yes.
everywhere I
Yes,
go,
she does.
and very proud to be Nigerian wherever I am.
Nice. I like that. That was better than my introduction. That's clear.
You did a great job.
Thanks, I tried. Yeah. So you moved to Norway. Sorry, Norway. I don't know why. I've had too many several
It's
interviews
okay. It's okay.
with
I
no.
know I want to come to Norway someday.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, you have an open invitation. So, but you moved to Canada as as a teenager. 14, wasn't it? Well,
14 and a half.
14 and a half. Good. Let's not get that wrong. Um, uh, that means that you actually have some good memories from growing up in Africa. Is there any one particular memory or experience that stands out um, during your, uh, yeah, growing up in Africa, in Nigeria?
For me, so I grew up in Lagos, which is one of the main metropolitan cities in Nigeria.
Hmm.
And I think one of the biggest things that really stood out for me in comparison to my experience as someone who resides as a settler in Winnipeg um, is the sense of community.
Hmm.
The sense of community in Nigeria is very different than the sense of community here. I feel like here you kind of have to go out of your way to create community for yourself, whereas in Nigeria, community just surrounds you.
Right.
You know your neighbors by their name. You can, if you need something, your neighbor is there to help you. But um, those kind of things
Hmm.
don't really exist in Winnipeg. I'd say that was kind of like a culture shock for me when we moved here, was not having that sense of community that I was used to. Um, I barely know my neighbors.
Right. Right.
I can't even just go knock on their doors. But yes, I think one of the great things about living in Lagos, living in Nigeria, is that sense of community and knowing that you can count on your neighbor if you ever need help.
Mm. Wow. So what you got to move to Winnipeg with your family, right? What was the reason that you guys had to relocate?
I believe for my parents, it was more of like an economical reason and to
Hmm.
give their children better life opportunities for growth and development.
Right. Okay. How was your expectations met when upon arriving to to Canada, upon arriving to Winnipeg? I know it's really cold over there.
It
So
is really cold.
yeah, colder than Norway in
Um,
most cases.
did you say Winnipeg
And
is colder than Norway?
yeah, it's actually I
Uh,
mean, yeah. Um,
I did not know that. Um, for me, I would say my parents really did a great job growing up. That in the sense that we never really um, had this craving of ever wanting to go to the West.
mhm.
I really didn't know anything about Canada or Winnipeg before we moved here. Um, I was really grounded in my culture and in my upbringing as a Nigerian. So I never had that aspiration of leaving Nigeria. I never saw and never even thought that I would ever be leaving Nigeria
Right.
to go live somewhere else. So it came as a surprise to us. Like my parents told us like 6 months before we had to move. I think they're about. And they're like, we're moving to Winnipeg, Canada. And like, I never even for once thought to Google or try to research into Winnipeg, Canada. I was just like, okay, I guess
Hmm.
that's what we're doing. As you probably know, with African parents, your decision power as a teenager
Yeah,
is
yeah.
really under the ground still.
Were you excited?
Was I excited? I don't think, I think I was indifferent, which is kind of many of my approach to many things. I was indifferent about it. I accepted that that was what needed to be done.
Hmm.
I would say though, I was kind of sad because I was in SS3, which is like the equivalent of grade 12.
Yeah.
And I was in boarding school, and it's like I suffered through SS1 and SS2, which is grade 10 and grade 11. And
You
now
had
this was meant
just
to be
become
my
a
year of reaping
yeah, just
from
become a senior.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was supposed to be a senior and enjoy the senior life.
Yeah.
And I also like heard that they were going to send me back in school years because in Nigeria, you usually graduate high school, secondary school is what we call it in
Hmm.
Nigeria, earlier that you do here. So at that time, when I was 14 and a half, I was a senior, but in Canada, I would be in like grade 9.
Hmm.
So they were also going to send me back a couple of years, and that would mean I wouldn't have a chance to go to university right away, which was something I was looking forward to.
Hmm.
So I was sad about that part of not enjoying prom and graduation and in all the activities that came with being a senior.
Hmm. Hmm. I get that. Um, I left Africa in my late teenage years too, so I know exactly what you mean. Um, all right. So you moved to Canada with your family, went to University of Manitoba, where you got a bachelor's degree in women's and gender studies. I think I
Yes.
got that right. So I was curious, why is that something that you thought about before you moved to Africa, moved to Canada?
No, I
No.
never even knew there was such a field as women's and gender studies. I didn't even know people could study that. I didn't even know feminism was a thing.
Hmm.
Um, in Nigeria, I had been training to become an architect.
Hmm.
And even when I moved here in grade 10, I had been taking courses that had to do with like design. And I also took a couple of mentorships with architects
Hmm.
in the city. So I was still like in my line to go
Hmm.
become an architect. And I spent my first 2 years of university actually trying to pursue architecture.
Hmm. So what actually drew you to that field?
Good question. I think I'm a very visual person and I'm very creative.
Hmm.
So I loved the fact that with architecture, you could reimagine design
Hmm.
and reimagine spaces and create in spaces and what that would look like.
Hmm. But then how did it switch over to women's and gender studies with with that in mind that you're a very creative person and visual? How
Uh,
how did that happen?
yeah, so I'm someone who's very self-aware of when things are not working out for me.
Hmm.
So I was reevaluating things. I always reevaluate things every time I
Yeah,
tend to
yeah.
overanalyze situations. And so I was reevaluating and I was like, this is not really working out for me.
Hmm.
And the kind of creativity in architecture that I was used to in Nigeria was different from what I was being taught in university.
Hmm.
And I understood architecture as like, buildings and spaces.
Hmm.
But then when we got to university and started taking architecture classes, they started teaching you reimagining design from things like cutleries to like um, shoes and bag and kind of integrating design into your everyday lives. And I really struggled with like
Hmm.
transitioning from understanding architecture as like the building of spaces to like the building of things and miniature things
Hmm.
to, and at some point I was like, this degree doesn't look like it's going to pay the bills.
So
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 I
you
don't think I can afford to be
right,
creative right now.
right. So you actually started. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's really um But I believe that you made the right decision because uh, what you're doing. Anyways, I'm not gonna rush into it. We're gonna let you, get to it in a few minutes. I read in an article about you that in 2019 you were the recipient of the Manitoba Human Rights uh, Cybel Shack Youth Award. You want to elaborate on that a little bit? What what was the award for? What led to it? Um,
So it was an award that I was nominated for,
mhm,
and basically it was the Manitoba Human Rights Commission receives nominations and submissions every year of people who are doing human rights related work in the communities in Manitoba,
mhm,
and a community leader who I very much appreciate, who I also consider a mentor,
mhm.
um, Mrs. Kenny Dowdu, who's someone I look up to a lot. Put my name forward, and I was so surprised when I received the award. Yeah.
Mm, okay. Because I thought it had something to do with the fact that you led a campaign for bring out girls back or bring back our girls in Winnipeg, which I thought that was really awesome that you did. Uh, that was back in, do you know,
2014.
2014. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you know whatever came out of that? Or with all those girls that were taken, it just did anything come out of that case and people found their children?
So as with like many things in society today, things often come and go in waves.
Yeah.
So of course, after the attention died, the girls were still missing,
Hmm.
but they were able to find a couple of the girls. And as the years have gone, they have brought in some of the girls back home. But
Okay.
I don't believe all of the girls have been
Been found.
brought back home.
No, no.
Yeah, but a lot of them, when they were brought back home, kind of went through this rehabilitation program.
Hmm.
Um, and the government has been very protective of them
Mm.
ever since they were brought back. But
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. So, let's talk. Uh, is it pronounced the right way? Nor professionals. Is that the way you pronounce it?
yeah,
And it started back in 2018. How did that come about?
so really, I'm someone who, thankfully to God, has been able to like build my own network and create a huge network and resource net for myself.
Hmm.
And I remember in 2017, just feeling like we needed a space where Black professionals could gather and go to for networking opportunities, mentorship, career development, and just feeling as a university student at that moment, like I didn't really have that space, especially in our city in Winnipeg. And so that led to creating the Young Black Professionals Network Manitoba. And so when after doing a couple of like market research and like interviewing various Black professionals and aspiring Black professionals, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this out. And so I put forward a Facebook post and I was like, hey, this is what I'm working on. So fun fact, I like to put public call outs when I'm working on things because I'm someone who's been very privileged to have people just reach out to me when they're working on things and ask me to work on things with them. But
Okay.
oftentimes, a lot of people are like, how do you find all these opportunities? How do you ever know what's happening? So I
Hmm.
like to just make that public so it's accessible to people. And if people want to work on that, they can just reach out to me
That's
rather than
awesome.
asking
Yeah,
for
that's
it.
really nice. What do you use? Which platform do you use mainly?
I'm mainly on Instagram.
Instagram, yeah.
Uh, but yes, whenever I do have projects that I would love to collaborate with people on, like there's usually just do like a public call on all my various social media
Hmm.
handles.
Hmm.
Yes.
Well,
So yes, so back to more professionals.
hmm.
So I made that Facebook post and I had a couple of people reach out to me, and so there was a team of three of us that started working together, and through that we put forth a networking cocktails and networking event, and that was in March of 2018. The event was very successful. We had over 70 people show up. We have
Wow.
we had over 100 people like show interest in the concept and in wanting to foster that space and wanting to foster that network and bridge the gap
Hmm.
that exists amongst young Black professionals in our city.
Awesome. Wow. And you've been doing that ever since while working, having a 9 to 5, right?
Okay, so here's the other backstory is that after that event happened, there was an overwhelming response. I was so excited, but I was also at a place where I just felt like I couldn't take on that responsibility yet.
Hmm.
So I put a pause on it and spoke to a couple more people. I was exploring also different business structures, whether to go as a nonprofit or as a business, and what was the most sustainable approach to go
Hmm.
with this idea and initiative that I had. And so had to take a break because I was still in school and trying to finish school. And so I spent the rest of 2018 and 2019 doing research and finally came to a conclusion at the end of 2019 that a business would be the most sustainable approach for
Hmm.
this, because when it comes to nonprofit, there is very limited resources for nonprofit, and it's not really sustainable in the long run.
Hmm.
I've also looked at various like nonprofits and community organizations in our city, and like a lot of them struggle with like having volunteers, having people on board,
Hmm.
because there isn't enough money to sustain ideas many times.
Right.
So I decided it was best to go the business route. So I reached out to the other person who was still working, who had worked on Young Black Professionals Network with me,
Hmm.
Akosua Bosun, and we decided to be business partners and co-founders. And so since November 2019, we have been working on re-envisioning and rebranding and recreating Young Black Professionals and transitioning it from that idea and that tested initiative into what it is now, which is a startup, Nor Professionals.
Hmm.
So we've been journeying for the last almost 2 years to create it to what it is right now. It's taken a long time balancing. We both work 9 to 5. We would have other commitments, and also just working with people. We've been very intentional to make sure that in creating this business and creating the startup, we've worked with purely Black professionals.
Hmm.
So everything from our graphic designers to our copy editors to our website designer, every single person that we have worked with on this project has been a Black person.
Hmm.
And because we've insisted on working with Black people, because our organization is about creating opportunities for
Yeah.
Black
Yeah. Of
professionals,
course.
is also taking us to go the extra effort and the extra mile to
To
find
find.
Black professionals
Yeah.
in this field. So that also kind of stalled the process for us. But again, at the end of the day, when we have a principle, we have to stick to our principle.
Hmm.
So we basically, from November 2019 up until December 2020, was a lot of our developmental phase for us. And since January 2021 this year, we've basically, like, our website is live, our social media is going on, and we've basically launched. We work with a lot of freelancers, and we have one part-time employee now. So things are really buzzing for us.
Wow.
And we also have our first event as more professionals coming up on November 6th and November 13th too.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard about that. Um, wow. That's really, really, really good to see how far it's come. I've been following a bit, at least on Instagram, and also the website. It's pretty, very, very professionally done.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is. So congratulations with the work that you've put in it, and I'm excited to see where it's gonna head, the direction in which it's headed. Uh, and speaking of which, that's an interesting question. I don't know if I should even ask or if it's been thought about, but what's the future for Nor professionals? Where do you see it in 5 years?
In five
In
years,
the
I
next
see
five
us
years?
becoming in 5 years.
Yeah, in the next 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, in the next 5 years, I see us becoming the go-to hub for young Black professionals and professionals who are in that transition stage of their professional life or their careers, whether it being transitioning from being a full-time student into becoming a full-time professional, or be a professional who's transitioning from being out of work to being back in work, or a professional who's trying to transition from one industry to another. So I envision us becoming that hub and that go-to for young Black professionals in Canada, and being the ones that are fostering that space and being the voice of young Black professionals in Canada. And as my T-shirt says, this is one of our slogans: is redefining the professional status quo.
Nice.
Because there are Black people in every industry that you could think about. So it's important that we're showcasing that, Black folks are not just artists or healthcare providers. There are Black people in machine learning. There's Black people in IT. There's Black people all across um, all across various industries, even in publishing, because I would never forget one day I was at a professional event for work. It was a conference, and I was representing in my company, and a white person walks up to the table and he looks at me and he's like, "Oh, I didn't know they hired people like you in publishing." And I was stunned. I was like, this was the do I say something? And then possibly what's my job? I was just like, oh, breathe. Don't let this white person get to you.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is why we exist, to redefine the professional status quo.
That's a really good answer. I was saying, I don't know if you thought about it, but of course, it's you. It's Yinda. Of course, I just want to go over to a segment where I ask a couple of general questions, questions that I ask all the guests on the show. And I know you've seen it, so you watched some of the episodes, so you already know what's coming. Nothing scary. Not yet. What are some of the day-to-day challenges you've faced in your career as a young Black African woman living in Canada?
The day-to-day, I think one of it for me is trust. I feel like, at least in my various roles, oftentimes people are skeptic about young professionals and young folks. So they walk into there with that distrust, and that affects how they're communicating with you and how they're working with you. And when there's no trust there, it affects how you present yourself.
Wow. Okay. And if we flip that, the privileges that you feel like you have as a young African woman, with a business, with a career in the diaspora in Canada, what would you say?
So what privileges do I have?
Yeah, compared to maybe your African counterparts, living in Africa. It's kind of, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. I have the privilege of having Western education. Unfortunately, Western education is kind of like the standard for education in the world as it is today. So I do have that privilege of having a Western education. I have the privilege of having a white man's passport, and having citizenship to a white man's country. So that in itself is a privilege, because if I ever have to travel, I often don't have to apply for visas to many places. I might not get ransacked at the airport compared to someone who is holding a Nigerian passport. And I might not get stopped in line or delayed because I'm holding a Nigerian passport, but instead I'm holding a Canadian passport. Of course, I might still get stopped as a Black person in the airport, but the chances of that reduces because I have a Western passport. I also have constant access to electricity, which is so huge in today's society, because online connection is so important, and that is basically how we foster, especially with COVID times and having a pandemic. Electricity is a fundamental right and access in life. So I have constant access to it, electricity. So that is also there. I also have access to companies, direct access to companies to who exist in the West, and oftentimes might have distrust about hiring professionals from outside Western countries.
Hmm.
So I do have that privilege too. Um,
Yeah.
I have privilege in the sense that I have parents who support me and allow me pursue my dreams,
Hmm.
because I really wouldn't be where I am today without my parents and without my community who constantly support me and show up for me. So if I didn't have that support, I honestly wouldn't be where I am today, and I wouldn't be able to dream big and be ambitious as I am today.
Wow. I would say that um, spot on. Two things I haven't actually thought about myself. The white man's passport. I don't know, I haven't, but and it's pretty obvious that that is a huge advantage that we have living here or abroad, and constant electricity. Like that, yeah, yeah, that is something. Lots to be thankful for.
Yeah.
That what is the worst that you recall, the worst experience that you've had living in Canada or just abroad, like if you can.
Wow. Worst experiences. There's been a lot of horrible experiences.
Just
Yes, I
one,
yeah. So
yeah.
I'm trying to think of like the worst. I think um, there's top two for me. One of it was I remember I was working on an election campaign, and after work, I went to the bus stop to go board a bus home, and I remember standing at the bus stop, and it was probably like 9 p.m. at night or something. With elections, oftentimes
Hmm.
things run late,
Hmm.
and we often have to prep for the next day and all of that. Um, I was standing at the bus stop, and I just see this car, like there's cars on the road because it's literally on the main road, and I just see this car with this white boy, and half of his body is hanging out of the window, and I see his head stretched out, and I'm like, why is this guy stretched out of this car? And all I remember was just I just felt this massive hit on my chest, and at first I thought I had been shot because I like
Whoa.
it was like a massive. I've never been shot before, but
Yeah.
it almost felt like that. There was a massive hit on my chest, and my chest was starting to hot, and I couldn't breathe for a bit. And after a few moments, I looked down, and he had thrown an egg at me. So I was in shock and confused as to why this white boy would want to throw an egg at this black woman standing at the bus stop. And I was in shock, but like what also threw me off more was like no one at the bus stop was like, "Are you okay?" or anything. Like everyone was just a bystander, and everyone just acted like it was just normal for a black woman to get egged by a white boy
Are
at the
you
bus
kidding
stop.
me? People were standing at the same bus stop with you?
Yes.
Wow.
And so everyone just acted normal, like there was nothing wrong about that. And I was confused, like because I actually like I fell to the ground when it happened,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I was holding my purse, and like that everything fell off my hand, and not one person asked if I was okay. So I remember I gathered myself, I went inside, I spoke to security. I was like, is there cameras on the road? And there's no cameras on the road. And I'm like, this is a mall. Why don't you have cameras facing the road? Like that seems very strange. So I called my best friend, and she came to pick me up, and she took me home. I got home. I told my mom, and she was like, "You want to file a police report about this?" But I've had many situations in the city where I filed police reports and nothing has ever happened. So I've I was like, what's the point? They're not going to do anything anyway. And seeing as there were some cameras on the road, there was no point um, in um, in going through that whole situation and that whole process again. And so I called 911 just to make sure, like, I wasn't like I wasn't hurt physically or health wise when I got home. So I called 911. They asked me a couple of questions. They asked me if I needed them to come pick me up. And I was like, I'm just going to see how I'm feeling for the next couple of hours. And if I need to go to hospital, I would go to the hospital. But I was pretty shaken. But I still had to go back to work the next day, which is how a lot of things happen.
I am so sorry to hear that. Wow. Even as a man, a black man living in Europe or outside the continent, I haven't experienced such like that. I'm sorry to hear that, really.
Oh,
But
thank
that's
you.
actually the one of the reasons why I have these questions because I believe that our experiences we just hold them. We're good at just getting past because we don't have a choice. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have those experiences. We talk about it maybe to the closest people around us, and we're done. And get past it. But I believe that it needs to be told. So yeah,
Yeah, you're very right on that. That is another reason why um why we started non-professionals too, is like giving people spaces to tell their professional stories. Because I remember running into this person who had gone through medical school but couldn't find residency, and I was like, that's a thing, like some doctors don't find residency. And she was like, yes. And so in the meantime, she had to just find a job to just cope, and it had been like a few years and she still hadn't found a place to do her residency. And I was like we don't talk about things like that, like on um uncommon or unpopular things that happen to people in their professionals and their professional lives, and how do we share the stories so that other folks know what to do if they ever come into this situation, or they know that they're not the first person or they're not the only one going through this, and there are other
exactly.
people
Yeah.
are going through this, and how are people surviving in the meantime.
Wow. Yeah. I also like to try to balance it off with the most memorable act of kindness that you've experienced whilst living in the West, in living abroad.
um well, there's been there's been so much acts there's been a lot of act of kindness just from like people who support me, like people who genuinely support me. It still amazes me. Like I would do work walking on the streets some days and someone's like, oh, are you Oyenda? I'm like, yeah, how like even in COVID times, the mask on, like some people still recognize me in the streets, and like they still walk up to me and say, like, you're doing a great job, keep going at it. And it's all this like little acts of validation every time when you're not expecting it. That really keeps me going. So it's the everyday act of kindness for
Yeah,
me.
yeah. I like that. I like that. So in trying to wrap this up, 3 words or phrases that comes to mind, if you would best sum up your experiences, your life lived in Canada so far.
Wow, that's a tough one. Wow,
Three,
3 words.
yeah.
Three
Or phrases,
words
or phrases.
or phrases. Oh
Yeah.
my days. Um, oh my days. I have to think about this. My days. Um, um, let go and let God is one. Because I say like God has really showed up for me in so many unexpected ways. a lot of the opportunities I have today is just by the grace of God. It's not by my power, by my might. It's literally by the grace of God, because there are a lot of hardworking Black youths out there too, that could have this opportunities too. So it is really by the grace of God that I get the opportunities that I get, and I have the network that I have, and I'm surrounded by the people that surround me today. So that's one.
That's one.
Two would be what is my days? What would be number two?
As a friend, sometimes I help people out with I could maybe say something and you could agree or disagree.
Okay.
Sisterhood.
Oh, actually, I would switch that and say community.
Community. Okay.
Because the sisterhood is part of the community. The family is part of the community, and my community is what keeps me going. They're the ones that show up for me every time, even when I can't show up for myself. They show up for me and remind me to keep going. So community would be another one.
See, we just collaborated.
The third one. Sorry,
nice.
what?
We just collaborated to come up with something like that.
We flow. This is why this friendship works.
Exactly.
We flow.
Yep.
Okay. I think the third one for me would be it gets better. And I have this phrase that I tell myself to motivate myself. It's Adara is the Yoruba, and it gets better. It would get better. It's something I tell myself to keep myself going. Is Adara. It would get better. It gets better, even if the journey gets tough, even if things are not working out. It gets better because you have the grace of God behind you. You have your community behind you. So it does get better. And whatever is happening right now is happening in the moment. In the next second, that's going to be in the past. So you just have to keep going, because whoever is getting hurt right now, in the future, that person is going to reflect on this and remember, like, this hurt was part of building who I am today. So it does get better. And, no matter what you're going through, no matter, even if it feels like everything's falling apart and nothing's not working out for you, and there doesn't seem like you have a future in sight, it gets better.
That got me feeling emotional. I felt that. Preach. All right. That's wonderful. Wow. Yeah. All right. This has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I think I just got one more question, and then we can say thank you. So with all this that you got going on, I have to ask, is Ayinda single? I know this. I have to. I'm sorry. I have to. Yes,
you just had to go there. You just had to go there.
Listen, I had to, gentlemen. All right.
You just had to go there. I thought we had a conversation.
I just need to hear it come from you, because I could just go like, yo, guys, she is single, but I gotta hear it from you. Like,
it's
just she's single and ready to mingle.
Oh my days!
Yeah, she is. She is. DM y'all.
I'm what?
You are. I mean, you are, right? I mean, say if you're not, but you are. And if you are, I mean, the Instagram, the Instagram link is gonna be under the, right there.
Okay, let me say this though. Before you slide in my DMs, just know that I'm looking for someone who identifies with progressive worldviews and feminist views, and is also a Christian. So if you don't believe in the God Jesus, if you don't have a fear of God, if you don't support progressive left views or feminist views, it's not going to work. So, so yeah, before you shoot your shot in my DMs. But I love making friends. So if you ever add me up on LinkedIn, follow me on Instagram, feel free to slide in my DM if you enjoyed my chat with the lovely Christopher Ritz. I hope he has me again. It's been an honor just like being here and being in your presence and having you as a friend. You're really someone I look up to, how you compose yourself, how your ambition, your drive, your work ethic, it really amazes me every day, and how you treat your kids as a father too. I'm really inspired by everything that you do. So
I really, really appreciate that.
You're very
I
welcome.
really do. Yeah. And really, really thanks for being here. I've been looking forward to this conversation, and it exceeded my expectations. So thank you.
Awesome. It exceeded my expectations. So I was like quite nervous because it's you. And I feel like I was like scared you were going to ask me questions and put me on the spot. But this has been really nice and interesting. I felt like it went by so fast still. So yeah.
Yeah, it did. I mean, we're just having a conversation like we do. So just at this time, we're publishing. Yeah.
And it's not a council meeting. So yes.
Yes. All right. All right, y'all. Thanks again for this episode. And if you've been watching, please subscribe. Please like the video. And yeah, let's look forward to more. And make some comments. Put some comments on and DM this young lady here, gentlemen. That's all I'm saying.
Shoot your shot. You never know.
Do that.
You never know.
All right. And thank you again. We'll talk soon.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Talk soon.
Okay.
Bye.